All right, we'll try a little bit longer conversation with myself. I hope you all are enjoying the show. So, my 5 minute video this morning turned into over 10 minutes, in large part because these aren't scripted. And that is due mostly to I'm lazy. And the value of increasing the content quality just exceeds anything I could afford to do. So this is why you see some of this the game, the glint in my eyes with this media part, because the presentation is important. And I realize that, but that's not the point of these videos. So what is the point of this video? How easy to sidetrack, eh? With no script. So I spoke in the last video about Fukushima and how interesting all the news and the media has been about it. And then when you go follow or try to find some of the science that supports what the media is saying, it just begins to fall apart. And it's not a hard fall apart. You know, they're using truths inside what folks know about these things, but you get bullshit thrown in. After some decades of just watching this general sciences, I'd say, how we use it, where it goes, what it does for us. This containment of the sciences is a challenge. This is the challenge for us, so that we can learn along with the rest of the folks that are doing this, and how much they're doing and what it means to us, and make some informed decisions. So Fukushima is another example. It is one of three clearly publicly visible commercial nuclear accidents. Now we go back to the history of the weapons accidents. So the weapons accidents are a lot of times more insidious, but they're better contained. And I don't mean the accident itself, I mean the media around the accident. If you haven't gotten a hint by now, I don't think it should be easy for the major networks to be able to speak to any of this. Because honestly, who's going to listen? Coffee burps, sorry folks. So, who is going to be able to go and understand this? And again, this isn't a me proposition. The only way we can do this is some way of collectively having repositories where this knowledge is, books you can go to, and then people that write the books you could go dig up and find. These professors really don't hide from a reasonable conversation. So if you can speak specifically about nuclear, if you don't put in chemtrails, a separate topic, a real topic, but a separate topic, okay? The other ideas that are out there just have no place. The Earth's not flat. We resolved that decades ago. Decades ago. These debates are about the definitions and the use of words common in the English language to people, not to these special folks that think they have discovered something new. All you see, and this is word games taught from some pretty old teachings, that are just put in to confuse and to obfuscate a conversation. So the world has been round since before I was born. The folks that have been putting satellites up there aren't even going to have these conversations. They don't want to be drug into this flat earth fucktardery. People waving meters around have no clue what they're doing and making guesses and assumptions. Um, I mean, one person's making a friggin' living off of having held a Geiger counter and talking to this shit because he's created a media machine that a few people follow. Those are the same few people that follow flat earth, the same few, they're looking for other answers when we've got soft, squishy, between the toes answers and not absolute answers. The absolute answers you don't like. An absolute is you are going to pass on. At some point in this planet's life, you will cease to exist. And at this point, there's like 3 people or 4 people replacing you. No, maybe 2 people replacing you. Whatever the population growth rate is of the planet is how many people are replacing you, because those are your brothers and sisters out there. And your brothers and sisters that are having 17 children are putting an undue burden on their neighbors, on the planet around them. An undue burden they can't understand because of fill in your blank. So the simple fact is we have an explanation for gravity. We have an explanation for why this planet is round instead of square. We have an explanation for why we could put people on the moon and vehicles human made on other planets, and sensors and instruments going closer to the sun than any caveman ever thought possible, than any person 2,000 years ago could ever transcribe on paper, because the words did not exist. That was the challenge, is creating the words we could understand. The human beings that did this, that put this together, your brothers and sisters that wrote all of the books, not just one of the books. So to understand this, you have to be able to throw away some misconceptions, some ill-conceived notions about the fundamentals of nature itself, about billion-year planetary cycles and our interactions with them. And the planet is challenging us. It's warned us. It's taught us how to learn about it. You can put whatever you need above that to contain that. There could be a God on the other side of the Big Bang. That is so inconsequential to how the planet works today that if there is something out there, I'm sure he's chuckling at our attempts, our grasps to understand this. And in about 1,000,000 years, if we last that long, we might have a few more clues, because it's going to be tough to get on the other side of a black hole, but our curiosity just drives us. And along the way, we are going to need the resources and the neighbors and the genetic diversity to survive. So there's a huge requirement for faith out here. And where you position that faith matters. Some of the smartest intellectuals in the sciences are people of faith, but they've had to push parts of that faith out. And it's very hard to do. There's fundamentals of your belief systems trapped inside of this. You've got some books that are 2,000 years of human changes you could describe as evolutionary to the words in that book, because the basis, the dialect changed. We are interpreting things that honestly have been lost in time, and some of that on purpose to make it look confusing, so that you just aren't sure. You have no confidence in your own knowledge of the dirt you stand on. That is a challenge. Now, I use mindfulness concept around this. And mindfulness is stop, breathe, think about what you're thinking about, and it slows your words down. And people think you're stumbling. You're considering your words out in public because you're trying to make rather specific points. But if I drug a ghost, if I drug my great, 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 great grand ape into the conversation and try to make a land claim from that great ape, we have some conversations to have. That is that we have to talk. Your genetic line, and that is buried in some faiths. Realize the colors of the pictures in the books. Those are pictures. Pictures need a frame. Framing is a word, corporate word. Framing and paradigm. I remember those two classes because they were on site or off site. So a bunch of us traveled from regions in the country to a plant and went through their process, and how a paradigm, how seeing things the same way for the life of a production facility biases your views and the potentials to make improvements on that. And it's not bad. You've been tuning that process for your life. You're attached to it. It's a part of you. You say our process. You say our work. You say mine, because a piece of that is yours. It wouldn't have started up and run as well, maybe, if you weren't the person doing it. But all the jobs I've had in the contracts that I worked under were described as full-time equivalent positions, meaning somebody sat down and says, I need a person for 8 hours a day to perform this activity. The activity is engineering design, engineering maintenance operations support, skilled trades training in this environment. The environment for me was oil field services, non-destructive test equipment. The environment for me was a chemical plant. For years as a chemical engineer, the environment for me was advanced instrumentation in applied labs, and then building cars for the rest of the world for decades and improving those products and the people building the products along with myself, and got paid for it. Not enough, especially the retirement piece of it, which is healthcare for all. I don't know why they're fighting. Well, I do know why they're fighting this. Because if you have intelligent labor, they are not going to put up with this shit. And healthcare binds you to an employer in 7 ways to Sunday if you have a family. And they absolutely know this. And you'll work 12-hour days to keep on the good side of your manager. And your HR manager might not be your work manager. You report to somebody else. So these degrees of separation means your HR manager is calling 8 different people for feedback, and you, and having an interview and speaking through this and helping make future decisions, retirement investments, opportunities, the new changes, so an HR conversation is different than the manager's conversation for a production process area. And sometimes they're tied. So that person might be the same person. These are big business organization dynamics inside of big business organization processes, inside of signatures that make these things happen. So these processes, these repetitive things happen throughout time, and we try to improve on them for more people's benefits. But this is deep think stuff. These are conversations that should happen before decisions are made. This is how something like Flint water poisoning happens, because people, even if they've had some of the education that they needed to be where they are, they don't understand the education because of many different things. So more emphasis is put on financial than is put on safety. And it's easy to do because you don't understand all the aspects of safety, and your engineers are shy because you don't want to hear it. I can come to you with a risk conversationally and ask you if I can go research it because I need to have something to bill my time against. And if I don't have billing time, then I'm going to go find a billing time project. This is how big engineering works. You are a full-time equivalent role inside an organization. In the contract that went to the federal or the state or the corporation or the business, you are an FTE, and you don't get to necessarily say who gets to fill that FTE role. That's up to the contract, whoever owns that contract. And I can go overseas and get FTEs and go look for an H-1B relief to be able to get a cheaper labor. So wow, did this conversation grow, because these things are big. It's that wide. And I'm just rambling on about it at this point, but it's part of these bigger things. This is where good institutions come in. And you notice I said institutions. I didn't say federal government, because those are institutions. I didn't say universities, those are institutions. Most of these things we're talking about here are corporations defined in law and given the rights to do what they do in written law, not in beliefs. That's how law works. So, good luck. Should you choose to accept this assignment, it's lifelong. It's a part of your genetics. It's a part of what got us here. And have some confidence in what you know. And don't fight the flat earth. There is no fight there. Tell their English teacher to go back and correct their spelling, their grammar, and redline words that are misused, and they should go back to the dictionary. Because if you find 3 dictionaries that pretty much describe something the same and you disagree with them, you need to go fix the dictionaries. So, yeah, it's just frustrating to watch how deep some people have gone into this and will tolerate even the conversations, and yet the entertainment value. I get it. I get it. Roll on, folks. Just don't make decisions for revenue. Although Lord knows, and he don't tell.